Hey, it's Tyler here. I'm going to talk about an RPG horror story that I've had on my mind for a little bit, but haven't. This is the second time recording this because I haven't been able to construct the story effectively. I keep rambling for like 5 or 6 minutes before I get to the point. The first time I DM'd for Pathfinder First Edition was like most people's first times DMing, I think. They found the school game. They wanted to play it. They're in high school. Nobody else wants to run the game because they don't want to read through the rules because, well, people think reading a tabletop RPG book is like reading a normal book. You read it from cover to cover, and the Pathfinder core rule book is friggin' huge. So nobody wanted to do that. I sort of figured out you can actually just sort of skim this and get the general roll a d20, add some stuff. So I ran in. We weren't really role playing. We had the traces of role play here or there, but it was always separated into two phases where you have here is your role playing phase of the game, here's your combat wargaming phase of the game, and they just butt heads. And we had a good time. I have good memories of those days, but I couldn't tell you a character. I could not tell you the name of a character or the name, any of that really. So that's just to say I was not yet a good DM, and that was probably contributing to some of the horror. I would say I'm still working on being a better DM always. I'm not one of those child prodigies with 40 years of experience under his belt, despite only being 25 somehow. Um, yeah. The biggest issue with these is playing with random people. I know Shauner advocates against playing with personal friends, but you find out pretty quickly whether or not your personal friends are good at roleplay or they want to try to get good at roleplay. And it's easier to convince them to get good at roleplay. If I roast one of my friends for, you don't need to ask me questions, yeah, it's, they're not going to take offense to it like some random person I've just met, like, damn, you're shit at this. So, yeah. But, anyways, fast forward a year or two, junior or senior year of high school, my friends at a local game shop, there's a pair of brothers, they own a game shop, and they've started running games at the shop of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. We had fun with that. Campaign fizzled out for a couple of reasons. Another person there wanted to run a Pathfinder game. That didn't go too far. Then we ended up running. I can't remember where the Shadowrun 5e game fits in here, but it goes in somewhere. And basically, everyone, it's just sort of a revolving cast of different people, a bunch of different first time GMs. It's beneficial for. None of it's particularly great role play, but you hang out with some friends, you support a local business, yada, 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 all of that. And people get experience at being a first time DM. And then they're like, Tyler, you're the only one here that's actually got like any experience DMing. Why don't you run a game and hopefully it lasts longer? I'm like, yeah, I can do that. And then out of nowhere, we go from having like a group of like 4 or 5 people at a table to 14 people. And I am thinking, I've heard about Gygax in the early days. You have a caller. We have like a co-DM to split things up here. And so I call the last the last DM over, and I'm like, okay, why don't you be my co-DM here? You sort of handle things, and made it to where like half of the table's almost playing this weird co-op GM-less system, then when something they do does something that interacts with the other table, he would tell me, hey, we're going to do this. And then I would sort of pause and then go, okay, this is what's happening. So it was pretty clunky, but I think it was less bad than it would be otherwise. Yes, it's an RPG horror story, and I think it could have been worse. The amount of people, surprisingly, was not the problem, because most of them were passive role players. So it was like having 8 people, which is the max amount of people I would have at a table, I think, in any game, and I definitely wouldn't do it in Pathfinder anymore. I once did 8-person Pathfinder games. It kind of worked because 2 of the players were passive. But that's not good, right? You don't want that. I'm trying to think of where to begin because there were 2 problem players here. I'm going to begin with the lesser of the problems. One player actually displayed a modicum of roleplay. I don't remember much about his character other than that they were a halfling. But he insisted on dragging his wife into the game, who was very clearly not a role player. He was okay at role playing from my memory. I don't think I was very good at role playing at the time, so maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. He probably wasn't as good as I'm remembering, but he made something somewhat. He was memorable for some good reasons himself, but it was I'm going to drag my wife here, who very clearly has no interest in playing Pathfinder or tabletop RPGs at all, and is just constantly halting things to ask, okay, now what does this do? What does that do? And it's like, we already have 14 people here. The game is going by slow enough without having someone who's not going to roleplay just ask constant questions about the game. So there's red flag number 1. That's not much of a horror story. The real horror. We have a woman who wants to play a bard. I don't remember anything else other than that they're a bard. I'm like, okay, we can make a bard. Let's start thinking about your character. I'll make a video on backstories pretty quick, because I'm like, we don't need a huge, giant-ass backstory, but I need to know, why are you a bard? Why are you here? I don't even remember. They were in a town. The players ended up basically creating the conflict immediately. I'll get to that in a bit. She plays a bard. Okay, why do you want to play a bard? Oh, because I play the flute. I'm like, oh, just making sure kind of the point of role-playing games is so that you can play something that's way different than you. There's always going to be a part of you in your characters, right? At least if you follow Jungian psychology. That's been my experience. You've always been able to find. We can never get 100% away from ourselves. Good role players can get pretty distant from themselves, but there's going to be some part of you. So I'm like, okay, just making sure. You can play anything. You don't have to do something you can physically do yourself. They're like, nope, I want to play a bard. Okay, sure. There were some red flags in the way she wasn't particularly paying attention at all when we were going through the process of character creation. Mixed character. Okay, let's move on. The session begins the next week. She brings her flute, and I swear to God, plays the flute poorly, badly, the entire time, with a table of 14 people. We asked her politely to stop. We're running at a shop, so this is tricky, right? I am not one of the store owners. I'm friends with the store owners. I don't want to push away potential business. She's buying snacks and stuff here. That's why I accepted the 14-person group in the first place. I'm like, I don't want to turn away these people because it's probably going to be good for the business. I'm running for a shop. I'm not getting paid for it, but I like these guys. I want to help their business grow. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But it very quickly became apparent that she was pushing away other customers. We were pretty quickly down to 12 people by the session after this, and after about the third time I'm asking her, hey, we understand that your character is playing the flute. You do not need to do that because it is distracting when other characters are trying to roleplay, when I'm trying to roleplay, and the 3 good role players there did something so memorable to turn this horrible situation on its head and make it one of the most hilarious and most memorable things that I've ever had happen in an RPG to this day, 5-6 years later. Oh god no, 7-8 years later. They went, hey, are you a follower of Asmodeus too? Yeah, I noticed your pendant was kind of hanging out of your bag. Yeah. Is this bard annoying the hell out of you too? Yeah. That halfling's pretty annoying too, right? Yeah. DM, they asked questions at this point, but yeah, they weren't brilliant, but they did do that modicum of roleplay. Are there any is there any storage for sale? I'm like, in fact, yeah, there's an abandoned storage facility, a dry goods store. Abandoned, you say? That means we don't have to pay for it. Not exactly. They forge a document saying that they in fact own this place. They beat both the bard and the halfling over the head with clubs, put them in sacks, drag them off to this abandoned warehouse, set out a temple to Asmodeus, and sacrifice them both. And I just had to sit there like, wow. You can't even complain that this is the DM against you. You've pissed off your fellow characters to such an extent that this is what's become of you. I was just kind of in shock at that point. I was like, wow. I suppose that solves our problem. She didn't know how to make a character. And I said, well, I spent, an hour walking you through character creation. Make your own character. I'm not going to help you anymore. Don't show up again if you don't have a character sheet and aren't ready to play. And so she never showed up again. I don't remember quite what happened to the other two. I think they just stopped showing up to the table. They kept showing up to the game shop, but they just weren't playing Dungeons & Dragons with us. And eventually we ran the caller for that group, the group of evil characters, switched off and became the DM, and then I ended up playing. And we played an evil campaign that went to level 14. It was the first long-term successful campaign. I wouldn't say there was a ton of roleplay. It was a lot of combat. I built a character. I built a character that was a hobgoblin inquisitor of Asmodeus. So they were very, very scary. They were very good at intimidating people. And so that was my attempt at sort of bringing roleplay in at that point is let's not. And again, there were hints of it being good. There were hints of it, oh yeah, not everybody fights to the death. You're friggin' horrifying. You just scare them away. You fire some shots at them with your longbow, and then they decide, okay, let's not mess with these guys anymore. They're friggin' crazy. But yeah, So that was pretty awful. The second time this happened, years later, I'm trying desperately to get a group. 5th edition has come out now, and nobody wants to play anything but 5th edition. I'm trying to get some college students. This is back in 2017, 2016. I'm trying to 2017. I'm trying to get some college students to play Pathfinder, to play literally anything that isn't Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I say, hey, I want to run a Shadowrun 5th edition campaign. I think that would be really cool. I get a bunch of people to show up, and then not one but two of them go, oh, we thought Shadowrun, we thought that was just like the setting, and it was going to be 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, and it's like, you thought I was going to run a near future sci-fantasy game? Cyberpunk in the... Do you realize how much work I would have to do? I would be writing a new system at that point. What? And Shadowrun's easy. As horribly edited as it is, if you cut all of the chaff and just use the mechanics as they arise and go, it's a dice pool system, you need 5s and 6s, you don't want 1s. 3 is something, don't roll if it's super easy. 3 if it's pretty easy, but there's a chance of failure or making things more interesting. 4 or 5 if it's medium-ish difficulty. 6 to 8 if it's a pretty hard task. Use the player's own skills if it's a really difficult task. That's it. That's all you have to do. Of course, adjusting it to the flavor of the game, how difficult you want it to be, how cool you want your player characters to feel, because there's no levels in Shadowrun. So then again, I'm like, okay, maybe I can get a Pathfinder game started, though. It's a D20 system. It's not that hard. If you know 5e, you can spend a little bit of time and learn 3.5. It takes ages. I finally find a group of about 4 people. 2 of them I don't even remember. I remember the 2 horrible ones. One of them, I don't even think it was their girlfriend or whatever, but they had a tumor of a human being that would follow them around. And just constantly be on their phone, be distracting this person. Hey, look at this. And he would kind of limply go, oh, no, not, I'm playing a game right now. I can't look. For, weeks at a time. I put up with it because I desperately wanted to play tabletop RPGs. I'd moved to a college town away from all of my friends that played tabletop RPGs. The last time I was able to play with my old friend group, the DM's old Christian conservative grandfather came in and was, all in a Christian panic mode. What the hell are they talking about in there? We weren't even dealing with like demons or devils in the game or anything. It's just literally the act of playing a tabletop RPG was horrific to him. So I didn't want to deal with all that, and I'm just like, I'll put up with it. I just want to play Pathfinder, please. I just want to play something that's not 5e. So, we continue. We're like, okay, whatever. Eventually I asked this person, hey, talk to this person before and after the game, or join the game and play in character. They never did. They didn't leave. That was one problem. This person themselves, they play a kineticist. I'm like, all right, sure, you can play a kineticist. They're cool. They're like your Avatar: The Last Airbender, elemental bending stuff. They're pretty cool. They look more complicated than they actually are. I want to attack a dude. This was very low level. This campaign did not get past level 3. It probably lasted 4 or 5 sessions. You want to attack a dude. Okay. Roll your kinetic blast. How do I do that, DM? Okay. First session, fine. Whatever. You're new to the system. Let's go over it. Let's treat this as if it were a test session. I should have done that. You roll this, and this. That's it. It's just treated like a normal attack, but the stats you use for it are slightly different. Every single combat, this person needed to be reminded of how their attack worked. And eventually I just started skipping their turn. Like, oh, you don't know. It's the fifth time I've had to remind you. Okay, yep. You don't know how it works then. You're playing a peasant. You can't use your kinetic blast because you don't know how to use your kinetic blast. Moving on. The other player was, I think they were pathologically a video game player. And by that I mean they constantly broke the fourth wall. They would constantly address things. Again, I wasn't particularly good DM at this point, but I could tell that these were players that I needed to act upon them, not the other way around. So I needed to, if not railroad them, I needed things to happen to them. I needed them to be put into dangerous situations because they would not put themselves in. They did not make adventurers. They didn't even make characters. They made character sheets. And eventually, yeah, I realized like, stuff's gonna have to happen to them. They don't want to go after the big bad. A literal line from this other player, whose character I don't even remember what class they were playing. That's how little they didn't just not roleplay, they were anathema to roleplay. I'm trying to run it as vaguely sandboxy. I give them a split path. I describe what's down each path. Well, I'm going to go down that way because I think the other way leads to the plot. Word for word what they said to me. And at that point I was like, okay, they're going to get teleported somewhere. A high level caster is going to teleport them. Boop. They literally, automatic failure. They cannot succeed this. I don't do, a natural 20 is always a success if they could succeed. That's it. You're not going to run up to a king as a peasant with no, 10 charisma and go, DM, I'd like to make a diplomacy check to have him give me all of his land. Oh, natural 20. I guess he has to give me all of his land. No, that doesn't happen. Logic first and foremost, game mechanics second. As soon as the game mechanics are not supporting, being the support beam of the logic, the in-world logic that we know is roleplay, the roleplay falls off. It doesn't make sense anymore. So, yeah. A wizard shows up, teleports them into this horrible dungeon, hoping to just get them out of the way. This is a full self-insert for me. This is what I would do to these players. I would want to teleport them away. Stretch. This player asked, DM, don't I get a save? Save. No, your will save isn't high enough. Oh, but I could still roll a 20. I'm trying to move this goddamn game forward. We have spent, again, I remember the only things I am remembering of this, I'm not cutting details. The things I remember of this are the players constantly asking questions, forgetting how their characters work, breaking the fourth wall, not even in a funny way. Maybe he was trying to be funny, but in an annoying way. I don't have a plot written. Leads towards the plot. No, it leads towards the main villain. It would lead towards you developing a plot, maybe. God forbid we use a tabletop RPG to develop a story. Why would we want that? I want to go interact with some random encounters over and over again and play some awful combat where none of the players know how the combat even works. Yeah, that was bad. I think that was worse than the Flute Girl. Because the Flute Girl was unceremoniously killed. I think I was the only person at that table attempting to have a semblance of role play, or even a board game, because the players didn't even know the rules of the board game aspects. So yeah, yeah, that one I did something bad as a GM, and I acquiesced. I played to his game. I said, all right, you can roll me a will save. If you don't roll a 20, your character explodes from wild magic and dies instantly. I let him know I'm not having any of this. I was pissed at that point. I was pissed before, but I was like, okay, I will just tell them to improve. I told them to improve a million times. Probably not very constructively, but just, stop doing this, don't do that. And they kept doing it, and I was like, no, no. They got into that dungeon, they all died. The end. No more of that campaign. And then I just didn't play tabletop RPGs for like a year and a half, 2 years. So yeah, that one was definitely the worst. That put me off of trying to find TTRPG players. But eventually, I put out this. I was like, it's been a long time. We're going to have a bunch of new, I'm a junior, senior in college now. We're going to have a whole 2 new rows of people. Let's see if any of these people can roleplay. And I don't think for the first year of my long-running Pathfinder campaign that came out of that, we did a ton of great roleplay. We've still got issues to iron out. But god damn it, they were decent human beings. They are decent human beings. That's where I found like my entire close friend group right now. My girlfriend of my 2.5 years. Some of my best friends that take me to work every day when it's, a billion degrees outside. They don't have to. It's a 10-minute walk, but just out of the kindness of their hearts, they're like, yeah, we don't want you walking out and when it's 90-something degrees outside. They're good people. I think at the base of it, the worst role players are just bad people. That's where the biggest horror stories come from. Yeah, I probably got more RPG horror stories on that front, but I just kind of wanted to cram the 2 big ones and then a little bonus one in here. Yes, I definitely have another one, but this video is getting kind of long in the tooth, so I'll leave it there. Yeah, feel free to share in the comments your horror story experiences, your experiences running for complete strangers versus running for friends. I feel like if you run for complete strangers for long enough, they end up becoming friends, right? Yeah. That's we'll end on that good note. Take care.